So, welcome to the post-Pesach resumption of our weekly Torah perspective talk. We're looking at a parsha this week, Kedoshim, which in most years is read together with Age. There's another instance where the two parshas feature together, and that is on Yom Kippur itself. Mm-hmm. When we read, actually, in the morning, we read Age, and then in the afternoon at Mincha, we line parshas the Isur Bia, which is also resumed in parshas Kedoshim. It's also mentioned in parshas Kedoshim, and this got me thinking: what's going on here? Why is it that after the matter of the death of Nadav and Avihu is mentioned in Age, actually unexpectedly, because we had the story already, and Age, the moment that Age describes is way after the setting up of the Mishkan and the days of inauguration, the Yemei Amiluim, where Nadav and Avihu actually died. So why is it that the Inyan of Yom Kippur, which is like half a year later, is connected with Nadav and Avihu and their death? This is what got me thinking. And I thought, maybe we look once more at Nadav and Avihu, because it is a bit of a riddle why they had to die. And actually, there are many reasons being mentioned, that they, in their religious enthusiasm, did something that they ought not have done, namely bring Ketores in a manner that they were not commanded, that they refused to have children, that they neglected to get married and have children. But actually, the matter of Nadav and Avihu is mentioned way earlier in Parshas Shmos, where there is a it's not in Parshas Shmos, in Parshas Mishpatim, where there is a very mysterious pasuk that after Moshe Rabbeinu had revealed to Bnei Yisrael the set of rules that would govern social life, then they went up. Moshe, Aaron explicitly mentioned Nadav and Avihu, and Shivim Miziknei Yisrael, and 70 of the elders of Yisrael, and there they gazed upon the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'sachas raglov kelivnas hasapir. They saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu throned in some way. It's a very mysterious pasuk in the heavenly realms, and under his feet was whiteness of sapphire. That is a way of translating livnas hasapir. And look at Rashi there. Rashi brings two remarkable things, quoting a Medrash. I didn't look up the Medrash, but I'm pretty sure that Rashi didn't make this up himself. He says, what is livnas hasapir? What is this whiteness of the sapphire? He says that's related to the levanim, to the tiles that the Bnei Yisrael were forced to make for Pharaoh, for the Egyptian building spree that Pharaoh was embarking on. And they were white. They were called levanim because they were white tiles. They were made from clay or mud and then baked in the sun, mixed with straw. And they were the building material that they had to make. And they suffered tremendously. Then Pharaoh, of course, stopped the supply of the straw and said, you have to get the straw yourself. Nevertheless, your daily portion that you have to make will not be diminished. I will still demand the same from you every day. Dvar yom b'yomo, it says there. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu kept these tiles under his feet to have the suffering of the Bnei Yisrael in mind. This is what Rashi says. And that is being hinted at in this expression of Kelivnas Hasapia. That's number one. Number two, he says the Bnei Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, sinned by gazing upon the divine presence, and not only they did, also the Ziknei Yisrael, the Shivim Ziknei Yisrael, the 70 men from among the prominence of the Jewish nation, they also sinned. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not want to kill them then and there, because this was the time of Matan Torah, this was a time of Simchas HaTorah, this is what the words that Rashi uses, and therefore he postponed the execution of the death sentence until later. You may ask yourself, all right, and then Hakomas HaMishkan was the time to kill them. Is that then the time? So Nadav and Avihu died at the time of the erecting of the tabernacle, of the Hakomas HaMishkan, and the Zekanim died in the parsha that we will see later on, Vayehi ha'om k'mis onanim, and then fire was affecting the Kitzei HaMachane, the furthest extent of the Machane. And Rashi says there, this Kitzei refers to the Kitzinim, to the Kitzinim, the commanders, the officers, right? And those are the Ziknei Yisrael. This is what Rashi says. This is something that we kind of overlook, this Rashi, when it comes to Nadav and Avihu. Nobody seems to quote this very often. But I think it's a key to understand what's going on here. You see, Nadav and Avihu wanted to know what is the connection between the divine presence and our own life. And they saw this connection when they saw the Livnas Hasapia, when they saw that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is involves himself with human affairs, with the affairs of Klal Yisrael, that he keeps an eye on them, and he wants, and somehow then they sat down and they were eating and drinking, and they're being blamed for that. You can't mix you can't mix a vision of the divine with your earthly life, with your concerns, or eating and drinking. That clashes somehow. All right. When you look at the relationship between the human sphere and the divine sphere, you have a fundamental tension. We don't live this life of all-absorbing Kedusha, Kelivnas Hasapia, like the whiteness of sapphire. But it has to do with us, because it apparently is connected to the Levanim that we made during the period of our enslavement. So how do we put the two in connection with each other? How do we let Kedusha, which is of divine origin, come into our life? And Nadav and Avihu said, we're going to do that. We're going to grab our religious fervor and our exalted visions of the divine and put it right in the middle of our life. And we'll figure it out. We'll see, we'll sit down and eat and drink. Or if we feel that we bring ketuvos, because that's what our religious fervor dictates that we should do, we'll do it. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no. You can't do it that way. That is going to cause you to lose either one side or the other. This cannot be done because either your religious fervor takes over and you close your eyes to what is needed to organize human life, or you do it the other way around. You profane the divine by telling yourself that your eating and drinking can also be holy on your own initiative. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll show you how to bring Kedoshim in your life. I'll show you how you can elevate your human life. That's Parshas Kedoshim. Parshas Kedoshim comes to tell you, Kedoshim tiyu, ki kodosh ani Hashem. We mistranslate when we say this means be holy because I'm holy. That's impossible. You cannot be holy the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu is holy. To understand that, you have to probe into what the word kodosh means. It doesn't mean holy in the sense of having a halo around your head, over your head. That's not what holiness means. Holiness means to be separated out, to be set apart. Mukdosh means dedicated to, right? Mekudosh is, a woman is a mekudeshes when she is separated out from the entire world and dedicated to this relationship with this man. So that's what kodosh means. It's not necessarily holy. I mean, a prostitute is also called a Kedoshim for a different reason. She is also set apart. She sets herself apart from other women, that she is available. Other women are not, but she is. Now, how do you do that? How do you distinguish yourself to be oriented towards what God wants from you, and yet integrate that with your human life? If you leave that to human initiative, it goes wrong. You see this the whole time when high ideals are being translated into human action. Look at the French Revolution, for example. You're talking about égalité, you're talking about fraternité, you're talking about liberté. Wonderful ideals, but heads have to roll. You have to have a reign of terror to achieve it. Or you look at the Russian Revolution. You have nothing to lose but your shackles. We are going to liberate you. It's going to be respect for each other. Workers will be respected for their work. And what does it end up? It ends up in a dictatorship. These isms that we use to give form to our genuinely aspirations that come from an inspiration, a striving for a high ideal, when they're left in the human hands, they will be corrupted, inevitably be corrupted. Comes the Torah and says, I'm going to give you some rules. These are the relationships that you can have, and these are the relationships that you cannot have. These are the boundaries that I'll set for you. This is, right? This is what property is about. Do not steal. Do not cheat. This is what your attitude to the stranger is, as we have in this week's sentence, right? Do not oppress the stranger in your midst, because you should remember you were once strangers in Mitzrayim. Is this talking about the right of strangers? No. It's about our duty towards them. And that's a huge difference. There's a huge difference between a society that is based on rights that are being inspired by high ideals and down-to-earth measures to make sure that people observe their duties, and from there the rights emerged. So the Torah doesn't have a notion of a right to property. Doesn't exist. On the contrary, property is continuously being circumscribed by all kinds of things. You have to give Maisa, and you have to give Truma, and you have to give Tzedakah. And this fruit tree you cannot have in the first 3 years, and then the 4th year you still have to wait, and only in the 5th year you can eat from it. And your field, you think your harvest is yours? No! You have to leave over this, and you have to leave over that, and if you forget a sheaf in the field, don't return to pick it up. It's all in this week's habit. It's all in this week's habit. So, if the Torah does not recognize property rights, does it mean that it is a communist society in which all property is communal? No. No. Because it also says, respect somebody else's property. But the right comes from the duty, and the duty does not come from the right. This, in my opinion, but I give my opinion for a better one, is what our present-day society, which is the logical consequence of, let's say, the cultural and social development that started with the Age of Enlightenment, right? Where the communal life that was dictated in a hierarchy in the Middle Ages and carried through even in the time of the Renaissance. In the Renaissance you saw already the birth of the individual as a center. You have in art, you have perspective that enters. But then in the period of enlightenment, the whole thing is turned upside down, and we're going to say, no, our rationality and our human reasoning is going to figure out. So this is a 30,000 feet overview of the development in Western society in the period, say, from the Enlightenment until today. These wonderful Enlightenment ideals, which, believe you me, I have been brought up in, and which I instinctively would like to share, but there is a direct line from there until the hyper-individualism of today's age, where rationality has made way for a moral and a cultural relativism that says even truth has been individualized. And I have my truth and you have your truth, and the entire notion of truth has been watered down to such an effect, that to such an extent that the other day I saw an interview with one of these wonderful idealistic students on American campuses who are, I see myself back, I grew up in the 60s, and I see myself with my protest mentality of those days. And I understand them. All right, they follow, they are not bothered by any knowledge, and therefore they don't even know what they're saying, but it, for many of them, comes out of a good heart. And then one of them was interviewed, and the interviewer said, and what about October 7th? And you know what the answer was? Yeah, that is a false narrative. That is a false narrative. So now we have come to a stage that reality is no longer determined by facts and truth, but is dictated by narrative. This is not in itself wrong. This is actually correct if you have the correct narrative. After all, we have just sat down on Pesach at our Seder table, and we have been fulfilling a mitzvah which is called the mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, the narrative of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Because the narrative that you tell determines your reality. This young girl who gave that answer, gave the right answer to the wrong question, but she gave the right answer. A narrative is important. And that is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us in his Torah. He gives us a narrative of our life, And if we tell ourselves that story about who we are and what we can and cannot do, then we have an access to his truth. Because his truth indeed depends on what you say, what your narrative is, how you confront yourself. This is how he created the world. The world was created by the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? So words do count. And words, believe you me, words can kill, and they do kill. So I think this is how we can understand the place of Parshas Kedoshim in the entire development. Just after you have this enormous Yom Kippur ritual, it is good to be reminded of the down-to-earth narrative of our existence that consists of the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not of our words, not what we make up, but what he tells us. So I want to leave it at that. You have a Gemara Shir to go to, right? So wish you all a good continuation of the week, and for those who listen to this near to Shabbos, already a very good Shabbos.